I'm not quite sure how to start this. I am a 22-year-old man who has been bedridden for the last year and a half. My spleen and kidney are gone. As a result, I'm bedridden for a large portion of the day and live with my parents. It's been a pretty depressing life ever since my 21st birthday back in May. I live in southwestern rural Massachusetts, and I haven't been able to fully participate in my life recently. It sucks, but I guess I'm just lucky to be alive. At this point, you're all probably confused as to what I'm recording. I needed somewhere to warn people, to lay out the experience I had on my birthday that night in 2016. It was a late night out with the boys. We were out at the bar in town having a good time up until 1 a.m. It was my birthday, May 14th. I was the last one to be dropped off at home. Our designated driver and I were having a chat about plans for the 4th of July. He missed my street. He said he would turn around at the next chance, and I told him to just pull out of someone's driveway. Unluckily for us, the next house never had anyone home, and now I know why. The house was a dark, dreary colour. It was the kind of house that shouted, old, but it still looked like it was in a decent condition. There was a large truck in the driveway, but it hadn't been touched for years, and the lights are never on. I told our driver, John, to pull into this driveway. I knew the house owner was almost never home, and so he complied. As John drove up the driveway, I couldn't help but let my eyes wander in boredom. I've never actually studied the lot, but everything seemed weirdly well kept for the local ghost house. Believe me, people never saw the house owner here, but the place was always tidy. Rumors flew around, saying that it was the local drug house or that it belonged to some sort of underground cult looking to stone itself in northern New England. Boy, were those rumors wrong. Funnily enough, I would have preferred to be assaulted by a drug lord compared to the experience I had. John looked at the house and jokingly said we should get out of here before the satanic cult gets us. My eyes suddenly snapped to the window. I saw two glowing orbs pointed right at our direction, covered by a window curtain. At first, I ruled it out to be nothing but a possible window decoration, but in my near drunken stupor, I couldn't help but panic. As John turned, the light from the headlights slowly revealed the figure standing behind those orbs. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. A horror movie creature, too real to be mistaken as a hoax. Its eyes gigantic and reflective, taking in the entire scene of two passengers in front of it, one frightened, the other ignorant of his existence. It was a humanoid shape with long, slender arms. What looked like spikes ran down its spine, and the thing looked starved. I could see its ribcage jutting out from its skin, even from my position at the bottom of the driveway. Its bald head seemed too small for the pair of eyes it donned. It stood completely still, staring at me. I couldn't help but feel captivated by its horrific presence. I stared back. Was it dead? It hadn't moved, and I saw no signs of it breathing. I was completely entranced by its eyes. As I looked into them, I felt the strangest sensation of pain, but it didn't feel bad. It was almost refreshing. Believe me, I'm not a masochist, but what I felt was almost like jumping into a pool of cold water on a hot summer day without preparation. It just hit me as a shock, then I was suddenly used to it. I thought John had been under the same effect as me, but it seemed that this entire course of events had taken place in mere seconds. The engine roared, stirring me out of my trance. I looked at John quickly, confused. Then I looked back at the creature, wanting to feel that odd sensation again. What I saw instead horrified me. It lifted its slender arm to the window. Even then, the arm was much longer than I initially thought. It seemed to stretch almost the entire length of its body. Then I saw its hand. Long, pointed fingers jutted out of its palm. Vicious fingers. No, these were more like claws. They all pressed against the window, and the face slowly turned to track the movement of our car. As we drove home, I couldn't help but shiver. John asked me several times what happened, but I just stared forwards. His voice echoed in my ears. It's not that I couldn't respond. I'm not going to give you any bull like I'd been cursed to never speak about this creature. No, I didn't want to. I didn't want anyone else to know about this sensation I felt. I wanted to keep it for myself. Nobody else could feel this pain. It was mine. I'll say it once again. I am not a masochist. I normally avoid any harmful situations out of fear of hurting myself. The irritation it causes is just ridiculous to me, no matter how dire the wound. But if you could be there, if you could feel the sensation this beast produced, it was addicting. I wanted to feel it again. We were home faster than I realized. John said goodbye and told me to be careful, but I got out of the car without saying a word. I didn't wave either. I just walked up our driveway. The headlight shone on me as I walked, and our motion-sensitive light flicked on a quarter of the walk up. I heard John turn around to take off. I opened my garage door and walked into my house. I walked into my kitchen, tense from the encounter I just had. I sat at the table and put my hands in my head, thinking about the event that just occurred. I was contemplating what to do when I heard a quiet patter to my side. The flap to our doggy door opened up. I was expecting to see Carly, curious as to who came up the driveway so late at night. What I saw instead frightens me to this day. I saw its long arm jet through the door, then its slender torso working its way through. I was reasonably horrified at how the creature fit itself through the small place. As it stuck its head through, I saw its eyes. I instinctively shut my own now that I knew it was alive, now that I could see its full form, now that it followed me home, and I saw its obsession with me. I didn't want to experience that trance again. The next thing I knew, I was on my back, my bones aching and my skin flaming. I opened my eyes slowly to see the creature draped over my body. I felt a pain in the right part of my chest and looked down. I was horrified. My chest had been torn up, ribcage and tissue all exposed and flayed. Panic set in quite easily. How was I alive? How did I not black out? Was this thing eating my spleen, my kidney, and my lungs next? I was horrified. You have not felt terror until you have been forced to witness a creature eating your own organs over your body. I couldn't move. I couldn't pass out. I couldn't die. I wanted to die. The pain was unbearable. The psychological strain I must have felt at the time would have driven a person to insanity. But I was still conscious. I hadn't bled out. Why? 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 I felt my flesh burning. I felt my mouth foaming. My head was spinning. I couldn't even handle the idea of watching myself being torn open and eaten like a bag of chips. Suddenly, the lights flicked on. The creature disappeared almost instantly. I heard a shriek. I saw the legs of both my parents and my dog yelping uncontrollably as I passed out. I remember the sudden feeling of relief as my mind faded into the black. I woke up in the hospital half a week later, somehow still alive. Apparently, I lost my spleen and one of my kidneys. My flesh around the areas of the injury was mostly artificial, according to the surgeon who greeted me. I looked around for my family. My parents weren't in the room. Instead, a man in a suit sat in a chair at the foot of my bed. He was small and had his hair gelled back. I would say he was 5'6" and seemed to be about 160 pounds. Not much muscle on him. He introduced himself as Mr. Brent. He said it was a code name, and I wouldn't need to know much about him. I guess he was a CIA member or something. He paid for my entire operation. I wasn't quite sure what was up with the act of kindness, but it must have been expensive. All he asked for was some answers to his questions. Then he might answer some of mine. So I told him this story. Then he filled in the gaps for me. I guess my parents had gotten a call from John telling them to come get me. John thought that the alcohol had hit me too hard since I seemed completely phased out on the way back. When my parents found me, they didn't see the creature, only me lying there with my torso torn open. They thought that I was dead until they checked my pulse. Even the doctors in the ER said I should have been. Apparently, John was found dead the next morning and had apparently died on the walk from his driveway to his house. All of his organs were missing. Then, Mr. Brent told me what this creature was. He called it a Wendigo. Those things from Algonquian folklore. They eat human organs and hate light, which is why I guess it chose an abandoned house to live in. Once you see one, it never stops chasing you. Most horrific of all, though, was its saliva. Apparently, it keeps humans alive and conscious through whatever wound is inflicted upon them, so that they can feel the full terror and pain that the Wendigo punishes them with, until their heart is consumed. I asked him about the eyes. Apparently, whoever he worked for didn't know about this. I guess I'm one of the few people to live through a Wendigo attack, so not much is known about them. Everybody else is found in the state like John was. I asked him if it was alright to talk to others about this. He said it was fine, and I could even post it online, since nobody would believe me anyway. That was the last I'd seen of Mr. Brent for the week. A week later, I was rushed out of the hospital by what appeared to be a SWAT team. I was put into the back of a white van. Surprisingly enough, my parents, my dog Carly, and Mr. Brent were all sitting in the back. There were two bright lights blazing down on us from the ceiling of the van. I asked what was going on, my chest hurting from the pressure of my lungs expanding. Apparently, we were being moved to a secure location. Mr. Brent had told my parents the story of my Wendigo attack. My father, at first, thought it was a load of rubbish, but complied. My mother simply wanted me to be safe. We got to the secure location within half an hour. Turns out it was a house far away from town, about 5 miles out, in the middle of nowhere, in an already rural location. While the movers who had our stuff were getting everything into the main corridor, Mr. Brent explained the nature of his organization, but I could tell he left out many details. Apparently, they find people like me who survived paranormal attacks, then protect them in exchange for information. The house itself looked ridiculously expensive. He told us that it has a security system that causes the lights to go on whenever movement is detected. Each room will always be lit when someone is inside, and the outside has large floodlights that only go on at night whenever they detect movement. It's the first house in the district connected to the town's power station and has 10 backup generators. Mr. Brent gave us a schedule for times that we can leave the house safely, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day of the year. I occasionally hear the lights outside turn on. At first, it startled me, but after a couple of nights in our house, I realized just how safe we were now. I'm only ever nervous when all the lights turn on nearly instantaneously around the foundation, followed by the sound of flickering movement towards the brush. I often talk with my parents about the whole situation. They say they're just glad they can be sure that we're all safe, and that Mr. Brent and his organization were kind enough to help us. I often wonder if they're being hunted, if even Carly is being hunted. I want to ask Mr. Brent so many questions, but he disappeared after the move-in. I haven't seen the Wendigo since that night, but it's possible I may look outside one night and see it staring at us, hoping for a chance to strike. I just hope that when that time comes, our fortress will hold up, as Brent said. I'm posting this in the hopes that whoever reads this will believe me. This isn't about trying to scare you or looking for media attention. This is a warning to everybody who spends late nights out. If you see a shadowy figure in the night, do not leave the light. Do not make the same mistake I did. There's a reason some houses are abandoned, and I fear I may have awoken one of the reasons.